love the idea of being different by playing Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, and I think you could throw into the mix. I mean, especially given game script and everything, why wouldn't we be playing Jaden Daniels? That's the other one for me is a spend up. We don't have a Lamar on this slate, so Josh Allen is sort of along with Hurts in their own tier. But Jaden Daniels is the other one that could get there and actually has a game script, against Philly in a huge game for them. I could see Jaden Daniels having a big day, and they'll probably use his legs a little bit more today than they usually do. So
just in the name of disclosure, okay, the next guy on my list was Jaden Daniels.
There we go. Okay, I love it. This sounds like the builds I've been trying to sell people on, and it didn't work early in the year for me, but it's been much better later. Let's just take the guys who are going to get us a bunch of points and have a floor of a bunch of points. The Lamars and the Josh Allens and all that, because they don't. Look, they just have. I mean, Josh Allen has just so much more upside than everybody else, and I guess you could throw Hurts into that mix as well. All right, let's move over to running back. We'll start with you Sheets. I guess where the first part is where do you stand on Gibbs, and then what else are you doing at running back today?
Yeah, I'm a little under on him. By the way, this 35% ownership projection, and to me, is probably kind of a joke.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be more like 45.
Yep.
And in big buy-ins, more than that. Now, with that said, I think it is a little sharp maybe to project it that way because they are, people might try to fade somehow, so maybe it'll stay down a little. I still think it's going to get up to 45.
At least
I'm a little under, but not, you know what I mean? But it's not like I'm Xing them out or anything like that. Because obviously it's a great play. Happen to be under on it. I'm really not taking any big stands over here. I'm like looking through here. All right, so is this a big stand? I don't know. I'm getting like 20% Barkley.
I like that.
Great. I think that's not normal. I don't know. Like almost 20%. Please hold on to the ball, Jonathan Taylor, maybe. Somebody like that. What I wanted to ask you about, and there's always somebody that just kind of sneaks into the discourse, like throughout the week that we don't really think about. I'm not getting any of him right now, but I want you guys to, when you talk about your running backs, to talk to me about Patrick Taylor.
To me, that feels like a FanDuel play. I don't think the savings is enough on DraftKings. I think it's worth speculating. Look, when I do my late swap today, I might hand build and go in and put some of the 4K other guy in there because Patrick Taylor has been around the block. He hasn't really ever had a thing. Now, we know running backs for Shanahan are great. On FanDuel, he's basically like the equivalent of 3K on DraftKings. He's
I didn't realize. Okay.
So on FanDuel, he's not a lock, but nearly like he's going to be in most of my FanDuel lineups. On DraftKings, I just don't think you need to do it. On the flip side, nobody else seems to think you need to do it either because he's not getting much of a projection. I'm just going to look at what Goldie has him at right now, just up to this. He's got him at 5%. Maybe that's enough, a low enough ownership where you can take a shot at him, but it wouldn't be surprising to me if they just go to the Israel guy as the actual running back. That's what I worry about for him. And I still can take the risk on FanDuel because he's so cheap and he's in the price tier of his own. But on DraftKings, I just don't find myself going there as much. I loved your Barkley call. Let's go over. And by the way, if you're going to play him on DraftKings, why wouldn't you just play Jerome Ford against a team that hasn't stopped the run all year long? I think Jerome Ford is an incredible run back in that game. I have no idea why he's not getting more ownership than he is. So I think the answer is to play Jerome Ford instead of Taylor, for me at least, on DraftKings. Go ahead, Roddy. What do you like at running back?
Yeah, Jerome Ford would probably have to be my run back in that Bengals stack too, because he's a little cheaper and you can actually help fit it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I talked that Seattle game, Minnesota. Kenneth Walker's cheap coming back. He practiced this week, looked good. I know Charbonnet was maybe going to be out, but I think he's good to go. I'm pretty sure he's good. But I think he comes back, gets to work. They're not going to bring him back if he's not ready. And I know that Minnesota's good against against the run, but he's only 6,300 and it's kind of a cheap back you can get. I like Brian Robinson a little bit at 6,200 against the Eagles. I think he's a cheap option you can get to if you're spending up at a QB as well. You still got Chuba at 6,800, but my favorite today is probably Gibbs. I'm going to probably be over the field. Connor and Saquon Barkley are the three guys that are the spend ups for me today. I like a lot. Probably a little lower on Chase Brown. Don't mind Bijan a little bit, but he's up there in price too. I like him today a lot too. And then a guy that I want to get a little bit more of is probably Kyron Williams. I'm starting to like that Rams game a little bit more. We'll talk about Nakua in a minute, but like
I like that you just mentioned that because I just throw out we just got news that that Quentin Williams, the big defensive and tackle for them for the Jets is out. So that also is a boost for Kyron.
Yeah, that should boost Kyron too. And he's not a bad price. He's a lot lower than he's been. So I'm going to try to add a little bit of Kyron into my Sims or into my build, Saberson build.
Well, at the risk of, again, like liking too many people, but whatever, but just because we didn't talk about it, I mean, you brought up that Jet game. You like the quarterbacks there at all? I mean, either Stafford or this is the problem. You know what I mean? Like I can go ahead, I can go on and on. You know, like all these guys, I can make a case for. But you have the Jets who've listen. I've been stubborn about it, but the numbers don't lie. They've given up. They give up freaking everything now. You know?
Yeah, they do.
And once a team, you know, the defense is usually the first part of the team to crash when the team is done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The offense, they don't give a crap. They'll just keep slinging the ball around. But defense is hard, you know, and if there's no reward for it, you're not going to work as hard. That's the way it is. And you got the Rams who are in must-win mode with probably the greatest wide receiver 2 now in history, that now being Cooper Kupp. It's like, you know, like they you know, and if you, I know Sauce Gardner is like, he's got a lot of pride or whatever, but boy, trying to guard Nakua, that's rough business, man.
They've been like the worst team against wide receiver ones in all football. Like even with Sauce Gardner, which I don't even understand how it's possible, but
Nakua's in a great spot when we get over there.
But to touch on that, I don't mind either of those guys. I just would rather the rushing upside from my cheaper quarterbacks. So I would rather play, you know, Caleb doesn't maybe have as much rushing upside as other guys, but like he's got more than those guys do. And then you also get into like the Thompson Robinson, who could easily run for a touchdown. Penix could even do it, even though he's more of a drop back passer.
Oh, is that right? Is Penix more of a passer?
Yeah, he was at least in school for the most part, but he can move. He just doesn't. That's not his. It's more along the Caleb lines, although not quite as athletic as Caleb, obviously. And it's funny because I think they're both viable. I like the idea of playing Rodgers more than Stafford because I think Rodgers is I just despise him as a human being. But I think he's playing for his own ego right now, and that's exactly the kind of guy I want right now in my DFS lineups. Because if it's him and Adams, and that's what they're going to keep doing, like they did last week. Yeah, just play with it. He's just going to keep firing, you know, the ball 40 times. Let's go for it. So I'm okay. I'm more on the Rodgers side than I am the Stafford. But Stafford is cheap, especially on FanDuel. So I wouldn't hate getting to it, even though it's not a priority for me. Rody, you threw out your running backs. I'll just throw mine out there real quick. I'm having a hard time getting underweight Gibbs. I don't want to do it. I guess I just think it's too good of a play. If he was 9K, I'd probably still play him. But what I do like is there are certain builds you can go with where you can play Saquon and Bijan Robinson. I think that's a really, really good route to go. If you play, and by the way, you could play Penix as a quarterback with Bijan because he'll catch passes as well. Maybe one of those goes for a touchdown. But I like that spending up at running back. And then where I'm spending down, I would play the Jerome Ford, DeAndre Swift potentially, although I'm not as crazy about that one. And then you get into like do we take a shot with Madison or do we take a shot with Patrick Taylor? But in the mid tier, which may be a little bit forgotten about, are I guess not mid tier. They're the same prices as Gibbs, but like I think Achane is very much in play, and I think that who was the other one I had? Sorry, I'm looking at my notes here. Oh, Kyron, as Rudy mentioned. But I like the idea of the spend ups. That's the route that I'm going to be trying to go with a little bit at just to sort of differentiate my builds. I think Barkley. My take is that Barkley has a massive game today. I think that Barkley is
awesome.
Going to be
I love that take
today. If this sticks as the take of the week, Brody, it might end up being the highest scoring play of the week again. Who knows? And then what was the other? There was one other one. I agree with the Jonathan Taylor being fine. James Conner is the other one who's sort of chalky that I think is totally reasonably good, like reasonable chalk. Yeah. So I'm playing, I have 18 guys in my pool right now, but I've only got 6 above 10%. And those are Ford, Robinson, Barkley, Conner, Gibbs, and Bijan. Those are the ones I'm with the most. All right. Wide receiver. We'll start off with you, Rody, and then we'll go to Sheets.
Yeah. Okay. A lot of cheap guys today. A lot of these mid-tier, like 5Ks in really good spots. It's helping you get these running backs. You got starting on Juwan Jennings at 5'9", Jacoby Myers at 5'8", is going to be really chalky. You got DK Metcalf at 5'5". You got DJ Moore 5'7", going to be chalky. Keenan Allen at 5'3" in a good spot. Some of the Devontae Smith at 5'8". I think Jameson Williams, a guy that's a little bit lower owned, you could get to today. He's 5'3". Drake London at 6'4". I mean, you got all these guys that are cheap, but really, try to get Jamar Chase in there. He's going to be owned, but he's 8'5". It kind of flips your build a little bit if you get him in there and mix him in a little bit. Puka Nacua is in a really good spot. He matches up really well. I'm seeing about 12% ownership, but he's 8K. I'd like to add a little bit of him into my builds. Also T Higgins at 6,800, if you want to do the double stack with Burrow that way, you can do that. He's a little bit lower owned, only at 6,800. I like that. You guys mentioned that Miami game, the Tyreek Hill's only 6,900, lower owner, under double digit ownership. I think it's in a great spot. You ain't gonna get Deebo Samuel under 5,200 in that same game. That's pretty cheap at low ownership. Jordan Addison, a guy like at 6,200 in that Darnold build I was talking about, or run back to the Geno build in that game. Those are just some of the guys that I really like a lot. You can play Roman and Dunze to be way different in that Chicago game off those other two chalky guys at 5'1". I think it's a great low owned play. In that same game, Tim Patrick, 4,500 if you want to try to find a better value. It's not the best, but he's been playing a lot better too. Just a value guy you can use. One other guy I want to mention is Garrett Wilson. I know you guys were talking about Roger stacks in Stafford there. Garrett Wilson in a prime matchup, from the numbers. So he's in a great spot if you want to add a little bit more of him to your build. But yeah, I'm on that mid-range a lot because I'm spending up for those running backs that Bobby was just listing. Try to jam 3 of those guys in. You got to play these 5K guys and maybe dip into a 4K guy too. So yeah, those are some of the guys I'm in my stacks.
Yeah, I like the Wilson idea because I think if people play it, they'll just play Rodgers and Adams just based on recency bias. But I think Wilson's a really good pivot. And
yeah, he's in the best matchup for the defense the Rams play against too.
It is. I would say in general, I would say Wilson. I just feel like Rodgers is going through this force feeding thing with Adams, but that's why you get half the ownership, if maybe not less, than on Wilson. How about you, Sheets, at wide receiver?
You can make the case the other case for Aaron Rodgers being that he's such an incredible ego that he's going to show, I can force feed freaking Garrett Wilson 200 yards also.
Yeah, maybe. Except for Adams is his old buddy, but yeah, I hear
right. You. It's Devontae, just watch this. You know what I mean? I can do it. Dude, try to get in that guy's head. You know what I mean?
I watched the documentary. I did it.
You did?
God. I did. I forced myself to do it, but it was actually really well made and interesting. I like the early version of Rodgers a lot more than I do the current one. Go ahead. Sorry.
You mean when he was sitting on the bench and humble and learning and stuff?
Exactly. That's right. That's what I wanted to see.
Okay. So wide receivers, first of all, the Jacoby Myers with a very, very uber natural run back on the other, well, whichever one you consider the run back, like the Brian Thomas Jr. From Jacksonville. He looks really good, and I would play both those guys together, Jacoby Myers and him. If I were seriously, if I were not running Sims and just trying to pick and choose who I'd want to play, I think that's probably a pretty decent place to start. Those two guys. Now again, neither of those guys are going to be unpopular, right? They're both going to be owned, but I think that those guys look pretty solid. And now the other thing about with receivers is, unfortunately, I was going over this last night as well. I just can't find anything that's that off the board. My top guys are pretty much the guys you guys mentioned, Keenan Allen, JSN for Seattle, DJ Moore, Metcalf. All right, you want to talk about this? So Metcalf was essentially ignored all last week, and the coaches were all over the idea that we would have to make sure to get him the ball and this, that, and the other thing. And I'm good with that at 5,500. You know what I mean? Even if I don't believe that, him at 5,500 is a good play. So that looks good. But again, 13%? It's not like he's under 10. All right, so we could talk about, talk about it. What you feel maybe about a 20% owned Malik Neighbors, okay? Because he's going to be the uber, almost forced run back. With all these Penix stacks that are coming in there, I don't think people are going to go with Wan'Dale Robinson, probably for good reason, because Robinson, what's his A dot, like 2 or something like that? Like he doesn't really generate a lot of explosion. So they are going to go right to him. I'll probably end up at market weight, maybe a little bit under. Remember, Atlanta's defense is not bad. And they're trying to win. I mean, obviously and Drew Lock is not great, so even if it is the only option, doesn't mean that he's going to get there at 20% ownership, but he looks good. And you already mentioned Juwan Jennings, Devonta Smith from the Eagles to go with the equally low owned Hurts, not Ertz. We'll get to him in a minute. Hurts. You want to play Higgins from those Cincinnati stacks instead of Chase? You could do that. If you're going to play Josh Allen, I imagine Shakir is just going to be the guy I have to play. And then I want to talk about the guys that I talked about all the way back on Tuesday or Monday. And I was kind of almost for fun, like just to be a pain in the neck, building these Carolina stacks with not only Thielen, but also the cheapos, the Coker and David Moore. And we looked at it, whatever. And then I was watching the Swolecast on Tuesday. And on Tuesday, you had Davis coming up and saying that Coker was going to be like 40% owned, right? That he was going to be a lock. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see about that. And then listen, public sentiment can go many different ways, and instead of that, it seems like no one's playing any of these guys. So I'm inclined, to take shots over there as well.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Actually, that game is kind of sneaky. And the only thing I just go back to is I still think Arizona's defense is pretty good. Yeah. But talk about teams that get into weird, wild games sometimes is Carolina. And Arizona can do the same thing sometimes. So I kind of like that idea of getting some exposure to those receivers, especially, as you mentioned earlier in the week, everybody seemed to be thinking they were going to be the ones, and now nobody seems to be playing them.
Yeah, no, they're just not. For no reason. They're just not.
Go ahead.
No, I said for no reason. They're just, I guess, what other value is show up? Okay, so then
there's not that many.
Is that Miami guy value? The guy
Washington's got is value, but it's not like a one. I don't think it's any sort of sure thing, but also I think that he's not even treated like it either. He's currently projected 5% ownership.
Yeah, I know.
De'Ami Brown, same thing. He's the other one I like as a spend down, and he's only got 4 or 5% ownership. So if you're looking for spend downs, there are options. Then you mix in the Coker and then or David Moore. Adam Thielen's a little more expensive, but all those guys seem to make a lot of sense. And partly the reason why people aren't using the values because of what Rody touched on before, which is that all these great plays in the mid range. The Metcalf, JSN, Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen and David Moore, I like. DJ Moore, I like a ton. I just feel weird about this game, though. The weather's not great. It feels like a Keenan Allen type, which is great because he runs short little routes and everything, and he can make a lot of things happen, catch 10 balls and all that. I still feel okay about Allen and Moore, but I just feel worried about the upside for them, even though Detroit has 20 players on the IR right now.
Yes.
You really do want to take advantage of those situations when you can. So my highest owned are still those. I have the Moore, Allen, but Metcalf's actually my highest owned right now. And I am above the field, even on a chalky neighbors. I have a lot of fear about this play because the real issue for me is nothing else. It's all outside of football. If he gets a little bit banged up, when you're playing football, you're going to get a little banged up. I think the team might call down and say, hey, you can't play anymore. There's no reason to waste. This guy's a superstar talent. You don't want to ruin your franchise with nothing to play for on the road. If they were playing at home, I wouldn't worry as much the flip side is he's been very, very adamant about wanting to play every play and get the ball. So it just depends on what the ownership does. And I honestly don't trust that. That's probably the ownership group in the NFL that I trust at least one of the least, if not the least. Anyway, so other guys I'm overweight on, Cooper Kupp. I think at 6,500, I think it could just completely flip, and we could see Cooper Kupp with the Nakua type of game this week. I wouldn't be surprised in the least at all. Drake London makes sense to pair with Penix. Rody mentioned Jacoby Myers. He's going to get pretty good ownership, but I think it's still a reasonable play. Tyreek Hill, I'm forcing in. Malik Washington and De'Ami Brown on the low end, as I mentioned. And those are sort of the guys I have above 10%. I am not putting any number on Deebo Samuel. Oh, I forgot one more. I think no one's going to play Amon-Ra this week. Amon-Ra will get a lot of that underneath work against that Chicago game. It's a way to get different if you are going to play that game. I think that's a pretty interesting one. I like the Chiefs Devontae Smith call, Calvin Ridley, especially on FanDuel, but on DraftKings as well. Those are just the other guys I was getting to. And I think the Tyreek Hill is the one, if you don't play it, you're going to go, God, this is the dumbest thing in my life. But at the same time, we could have said that every week. The difference is now with Waddle out too, I just feel like he's getting those bubble screens. I feel like he ends up with 10 catches today, and that usually means 100 yards plus and a touchdown. Just afraid that's going to happen.
I mean, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? Like, if you told me on like a regular slate like a year ago that Jalen Waddle was out and Tyreek Hill was like 8,800, he'd be like 50% owned.
Yeah, even if he's 91.
You know what I mean? Like, so and especially it's in a close game. You know what I mean? Like it's
weather.
I don't know. And listen, everybody closed their eyes, and I told you guys that Miami was playing San Francisco in a 4:00 game. Like 95% of people would think it's in San Francisco, right? But it's not. It's like it's right. It's in Miami. It's like I didn't even remember that. You know.
I think it was supposed to be like the big afternoon game, but then now the teams kind of turned out to be disappointing. So.
Okay.
But,
it is the game of the week, I think, or whatever their spotlight is. They do,
whatever they call it.
There's not a whole lot to spotlight today because I care the most about obviously the Rams and Jets, but like, who is the real, like, I guess Philly. I was surprised Philly and Washington didn't get whatever put in that spot because Philly and Washington is a big game.
Yeah, that's probably the closest spread, right? Or the Seahawks Vikings is close. Actually,
yes, Vikings is a huge game. Actually, that's in all fairness, that's a huge game as well.
That's a 4:00 or 2, so that'll be
And that's what I wanted to throw out is that if you're going to play stacks from that game, I think you should force Justin Jefferson in. You'll never see him this cheap. You'll never see him this low owned again. So if you're going to play like the Seattle stack, try use Jefferson as a run back, just because look, the guy has the same ups, the highest upside as anybody is, including except for he and Chase would be the two. But
yeah, I forgot to mention Aaron Jones in that game too at 6,400. I like a little bit of receiver Jefferson Jones run back in that. That Seattle stack's cheap.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
We're gonna get to tight end, we're gonna get to defense, and typically, like when I'm absorbing content, I just want everybody to hang in there, okay? Because usually, even when I absorb it, I'm like, okay, I got the quarterback, the running back, wide receiver. Who cares about tight end? I don't care about defense. I'm gonna go on to another podcast now. I'm done, right? I don't need any more information. And when I'm watching replay, I do that all the time. I just get the information and then I go on. I just want to tell everybody that we've talked about a lot of guys, but I have the big Millie Maker winner.
Oh my God, you're coming on early.
I'm going to hold until the very end. Okay. I have the running back, the defense, and the stack that's going to win all of it. And I may not have mentioned it at all.
Oh, I love this.
But you guys literally have to wait until the very end.
All right, that sounds awesome. All right, well, let's get to tight end. I think tight end is very strong. I'll go first just to get, mess with things a little bit. I think tight end is pretty strong. I think there's been a lot of outspoken things about them wanting to get McBride in the end zone. He's like, for anybody who doesn't know, he's got the most catches of anybody in history without getting in the end zone. He's the spend up. I think Brenton Strange is good. Is good chalk. Considering it's football. As the cheapo, I think Zach Ertz would be the other guy I would look at as a cheapo. I think that I think you could consider you know what I'm going to do actually. I'm going to probably get. I don't like this Gesicki play that I'm getting to right now. I really don't. I like Laporta. I think that's a good one to get different with for that game stack. I don't think people are playing him. And then we might get Brock Bowers at low ownership. And I was kind of flirting around with some hand builds. Can I get Trey McBride and Bowers into the same lineup? Because you might be in really good shape. The only problem is we have all these good receivers in that same price tier. So I can't quite figure out what I want to do yet. But those are the main ones for me. Why don't we go to Rhodey and then Sheets?
Yeah, we did get news that David Njoku's active for Week 16 too.
Yes.
Just came in 4 minutes ago. None of the projections are going to show that. Bengals do suck at defense. I think we didn't talk about much Cleveland guys.
But also you have a quarterback who doesn't like to throw downfield, so maybe a tight end will be his best friend.
Yeah, maybe like some dump off. So that might be a little different if he see what he projects in when he gets in the projections. Other tight ends though, Hawkinson at 4,800 in that same Vikings game we talked about. I like that. You didn't mention you like Gesicki, but in that same Bengals game, you could pair him with Chase and Burrow or something like that. 3,300, he's cheap. I'm getting a little Pitts in that Penix stack. Maybe he gets involved a little bit more. He's cheap at 4K. I kind of like. And then you have the top, McBride. I'm going to have him in my Murray stack. I think he's a priority. He's going to be owned though. Strange is going to be owned. Bowers is kind of more an optimal cash. He's in our cash. Actually, they like double tight end for a cash, like Strange and Bowers type thing with those 3 cheap receivers that Sheets mentioned earlier. For other tight ends, I like, I'm not huge on this slate today for tight end. I just like the guys in my stacks I'm going to do. One other guy in the Geno stack, I like Fant. He's $100 more than Strange at 3,500 and going to be no ownership.
Bobby's not playing Noah Fant.
Noah Fant?
Never going to happen for me.
Bobby's not playing Noah Fant.
I don't like him them either, but I built him in a Millie Maker lineup with my Geno. So
watch him go off today. I don't want to talk you off a fan totally. So I
drafted him heavy in best ball, and he has not done anything good. And we're at the end of best ball season here, so
because he doesn't
not
do
in any
anything
lineup. So
he never does, and they never throw him the ball. And it's just,
aside from that, he's a good play.
No, but I forgot to mention one of the guys I like the most. That's obviously Jonnu Smith. I think
I was going to say Jonnu. Yeah, I bet he's a guy.
So she's tight end, and then we'll go to defenses quickly, and then we'll get the hot takes.
Yeah. So as far as tight end goes, I mean that Njoku play is that Njoku in is like a little annoying to me because, and listen, I'm not embarrassed to like talk about like other sites like some of their takes, especially if I respect them and especially if they're free. If they put it out for free on YouTube, I think I can talk about it.
Yeah.
So this was like from like a day or so ago, but one of I think is like one of the real sharp guys out there is from Run Pure, like Rubio Dimes. He's one of the really rare people that could put out content and fucking play. You know what I mean? And win at both. And he was really trying to make the case for freaking Cleveland. At he's like DTR is the same freaking price pretty much as Penix. Okay, maybe he's a little worse, but he's going to be 1/10 the ownership, and the one thing I just couldn't freaking pull the trigger was if anything it was just going to be Judy. Now with freaking Njoku in there too, I might get cajoled into playing a little of that. Other tight ends I'm getting to are the guys that from the games I already mentioned, like Brendan Strange from the Jacksonville Vegas game. McBride, I'll shout out another. Listen, this is like me calling out other people right now. This isn't a tout guy, but one of my favorite follows, which either love him or hate him, is downside of me on the
he's hilarious,
and he's great. He's typically like anti-industry, anti-tout, anti-whatever, but he what's awesome about him, it's kind of crazy. Like he'll tilt and like whine about like getting like beat in like a 5K. Like for first prize, like NBA thing. And last week he was like basically 90% to win the million after like the 1 p.m. games. Okay. All he needed was like Trey McBride to do like anything. And it couldn't do anything. And he like noticeably absent from Twitter, like the whole freaking that game. And I was rooting so hard. And then everybody, all the Josh Allen people, they all swept by him. And he ended up getting like 12. And you didn't hear a freaking word about him bitching about that. You know what I mean? But like everything else, he whines nonstop about, which is part of his brand. Just I feel bad for him when McBride goes for 40 this week. It's like, so yeah, I guess that I like him. Brock Bowers, I probably am getting some Jasicki too, and I'm equally upset about it. Ertz just feels like someone I don't want to play. Like. Just coming off of injury. I didn't even know if he was going to play going into it. I don't know about this. I mean, I would rather play the Jasicki than him. And Jonnu Smith, you already mentioned. Hunter Henry from New England's not bad. And just the usual cast of characters. Like I don't think I'm going to be particularly overweight. I'm looking at my exposures here. I don't like that much of anybody really.
Yeah, I hear you. So you're not as high on it as think. I put a lot of tight ends in the flex for me. So if you're looking at your exposures through SaberSim, just a reminder that
I know
it's showing me with like 10%, with like 6% Jonnu, but he's actually 26% because I've got him in flex so much. So there's just something to throw out there. The more I think about it, I really think I like this Laporta idea to play with like Strange. That way you double spend down and it's a funky price range. I think it's kind of a cool play, and he's getting much more involved lately.
Well, not only that, but if you play Detroit receivers without Gibbs, you're doing it right. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like that you're getting the total from that game, and you're fading and you're fading the chalk. You know what I mean? I think that's a very good way to play.
Yeah, I agree.
Which is also why you could play those Carolina receivers. So I think Hubbard's going to get a decent ownership also, and you can get away from that and still get the Carolina offense.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. All right, defenses. Sheets, we'll start with you because we know you're just gonna play 20, no more than 20%, and I agree with you on DraftKings. I'm doing the same. But who do you find yourself on the most?
The Raiders, actually.
Wow,
that would be the one I'm getting the most of without adjustment, considering all the recommendations I made from that game on offense. Yeah, so that's who I'm getting the most of. The Bengals, the Jets, I guess, just because they're cheap. We'll get to some others a little later. We'll get to my Millie Maker winner in a second. But the Raiders, they're the one that's projecting the best for me in my Millie Makers right now.
Yeah, I and I'll let Rody go last here, but I have the same. I have the Raiders as the highest owned for me. The Bengals. By the way, I just want to throw something really interesting out. Jameis Winston would be the highest owned player on this slate, the highest owned quarterback if he was playing today.
Yep. And
it just makes me keep thinking about the Thompson Robinson thing.
Yep.
Maybe
it's like so really getting the Browns into me too right now.
But I don't know if you need to double stack it because he just doesn't throw the ball that much. You could play him with you know what you could do? You could play him with Ford and Njoku.
Yeah, but he's gonna have to, I think.
He might have to. You're right. He might have to. The only thing is, well, if he doesn't have to, that means Jerome Ford's a great play, because Ford's going to run all over him.
So the Jerome Ford, now again, I can't really get into the industry component of this, but there's the Jerome Ford. I really believe the Jerome Ford love is coming from one site.
I don't see any Jerome Ford love. This is just me.
That's the reason I mentioned it to you is it's coming from one site. And about, and I've watched content from wherever, and I'm not getting to it too much myself, but one site is really cramming it into their sims, and it might end up becoming a little more popular than we might like. I don't know.
Okay, that's fine with me, but I think that it's very strange that this is not like the ultra chalk play, and that's just me.
Well, with Njoku, it makes it a little worse, maybe.
Maybe, but we're talking about we have no Nick Chubb who hasn't been able to move at all, and even with Nick Chubb playing, Jerome Ford was doing fine.
And not only that, but Cincinnati's just as bad against the run as against the pass.
100%. All right, Rody, finish it off with defenses. We'll give our hot takes, and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah, defenses. Raiders. My hot take today. Really was going to be that those Jaguars, Thomas and Strange go under their projections, and the Raiders defense comes through. That was mine too. I'm heavy on the Raiders D. So other defenses you can go. Don't even mind the Giants at 2,400 against the rookie quarterback first start. He could throw a pick six easy. Even the Patriots at 2,100. Play the game slow. I'm waiting for the 2K defense so I can lock them in one day. But 2,100 the lowest. I don't have a lot of the Patriots, but I mix them in. Even the Browns against the Bengals. Joe Burrow's turned the ball, throws pick sixes this year. They could pick one off and run it back at 2,300. So I'm just mixing those cheap defenses. And if I do spend up at defense, the Bengals are projecting the best. They got a little ownership. Bengals and Bills. Bengals are 3,300. Bills are 3,600. So, but I like the cheap ones, and the Raiders is my favorite at 2,700.
Nice. All right, Sheets. Well, it's Adam that bringing up something in chat. Our guy Adam Perry in here. He's asking about thoughts on Purdy. I'm above the field on Purdy and San Francisco stacks. I'm probably a little bit above on that game overall. I think we all kind of sort of agreed on that premise when we talked about it before. Joanne's asking, would you play Abdullah or Madison at running back? If I had to pick one, it would be Madison. But I don't really want to play either of them. I would rather play Jerome Ford. All right, Cheats, give us the winners.
I already gave it earlier in the week too, but I'm even more convinced. So what you're looking for again is something that gets leverage against something popular. Okay. And I'd love to say has a chance. Maybe it doesn't have a chance, but you're going to have a very, very chalky Michael Penix, Atlanta. Okay. And people are going to play that, and they're going to play if they play that, they're going to play the Malik Neighbors run back. That's just what they're going to do.
Oh yeah. I know what you're going to say.
Yeah. So how do we get leverage against both of these things at the same time? We play Tyrone Tracy for the Giants and pair him with the Giants defense as Rhodey just kind of mentioned. Okay, so you get leverage against all the Penix stuff with the Giants defense, and leverage against all the neighbor stuff with the Tyrone Tracy. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is from a stack perspective. This is a little bizarre, but I sort of alluded to this Monday a little bit. There's a team that I played a couple of times. One time I forced them in for 20%, and I didn't get there, but someone else did and won the freaking million with this freaking team. And they're against a team that is just primed to be freaking flat. We have Josh Allen, who is going for MVP, coming off of 2 freaking big freaking games, coming home where the team's completely complacent. I think New England is going to win the freaking Millie Maker. Okay, I think that Drake May and I've seen Buffalo get lazy and give up freaking points when they don't have to. I saw Tennessee get I forget who it was, but they're just used to giving up points. And why not? They know that Josh Allen can go and freaking just do whatever he wants. Next thing you know, if the Patriots have 14 points, okay, it kind of goes with sort of my Josh Allen take anyway. You know what I mean? Right. And I think, and I actually I remembered it because I ran one set of sims like yesterday that was giving me like 23% New England. I'm like, well, I'm not doing that. Okay. But it's at least making me think about it. So that's what's going to happen. It's going to be Drake May plus like whatever, like Demarius, whatever his name is, and whoever, and Hunter Henry, right? And then with the Tyrone, I'm giving you a whole lineup. Tyrone Tracy with the Giants defense, and then just spend up for, play like 6 to 10K guys or whatever it is, like the rest of them. So that's gonna win.
I love that. First of all, I think it's an awesome take. I actually think that makes a lot of sense for the Millionaire Maker, especially for I'll say my bold takes of the day are Saquon Barkley will be on the Millionaire winning lineup, and it doesn't sound that bold, but he's going to be like 6% owned, so kind of bold enough. And my other ones are, well, they're not all 3 going to make it, but 2 of the 3, Laporta and Tyreek Hill will be on the Millionaire Maker. But you can play all those guys with Sheets' New England stack, and then you win all the money.
That's it.
Yeah. All right, Rhodey, take us out of here, buddy.
Yeah, so I'm glad you talked about Tyrone Tracy. He's in the big 555 best ball lineup. He's not talked about because I have Gibbs and Barkley. But so he could be a third back that helped me.
He'll outscore those 2 turkeys. Don't worry.
It sounds like if we win today, Rhodey, you advance. It sounds like that's what's happening.
Yeah, and I got Judy in that lineup too. I didn't mention earlier.
Let's go.
So I'm hoping for a big game against the Bengals. So he's been getting the ball. So.
So Njoku playing is kind of a bad beat for you.
Yeah. So when I seen that come through, I was like, well, that kind of sucks for my Judy. So, but yeah.
Oh well, always next year.
Nah, we're gonna move this one on today.
There's no Tillman still. You're okay.
Yeah, we're good. We got a lot of players.
You got to keep us updated in the chat because I don't really know how to sweat.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes after today. Early games here.
Yeah, let us. You're pretty good at this. Let us know what you need and who to fade.
Yeah. All right, I will do.
As a matter of fact, if it's like 5:30, maybe he'll go online or something. If it's like close, if we know what to root for.
Yeah, but we got Monday night too. I got Dobbs and Watson.
Okay.
So if my receivers botched today, one of those guys could carry me to the top.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
We'll update later today to see if I need Dobbs and Watson.
And I hate to do this because we've been through a lot. And any specific FanDuel take?
I threw out the Patrick Taylor. Makes a lot more sense over there to me than he does on DraftKings. I think that it's mostly similar guys. I did, except for the Tampa Bay Dallas game. I think is a great game to target.
Yeah, I did in my blitz lineup. I did a Mayfield, Evans, McMillan. I forgot I got Jalen McMillan in the 5-5-5 lineup too today.
Oh my god!
So I got a lot of receivers that are going. So I got a lot of shots at. That's why I said my floor is really good. I'm just worried about my upside. But
nice, Freddie. Well, good luck today, man. Before you take us out, good luck.
Yeah, that lineup's good, so I hope it moves on. All right, guys. Good luck to everyone else today, and as always, let's get it.